The Galactic Council declared humans dangerous. They had no idea how right they were. Part 1. Commander Frank Carter stared through the view screen of the Pathfinder. The vastness of space stretched before him, punctuated by distant stars that seemed to wink at him from across the universe. The ship had been traveling beyond the Oort cloud for 3 weeks now, farther than any human vessel had gone before. "Commander, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature," said Dr. Olivia Martinez, the ship's science officer. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she analyzed the readings. "It's unlike anything in our database." Frank moved to her station, peering over her shoulder at the display. "Natural phenomenon?" "No, sir, the pattern is too regular, too deliberate." Olivia looked up at him, her eyes wide with the implication. "I think it's artificial." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this might mean. "How far?" Frank asked, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "About 30,000 kilometers ahead. Whatever it is, it's big." Frank straightened and returned to his command chair. "All stop. Yellow alert. Let's be cautious here." The Pathfinder slowed to a halt in the emptiness of space. The crew waited, monitoring their instruments as the minutes ticked by. Then, without warning, a massive ship appeared before them, seemingly materializing out of nothing. It was enormous, at least 10 times the size of the Pathfinder, with a sleek design that reminded Frank of ancient sea creatures from Earth's oceans. The hull gleamed with an iridescent sheen that shifted colors as they watched. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. They're speaking English." Frank nodded. On screen. The view screen flickered, and an alien figure appeared. It had pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent, with large almond-shaped eyes that blinked vertically instead of horizontally. Its head was elongated and hairless, and when it spoke, its thin lips barely moved. "Greetings, vessel from Earth. I am High Counselor Zextara of the Arctarian Empire, representative of the Galactic Council. We have been observing your species for some time." Frank took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I am Commander Frank Carter of the Earth Space Force vessel Pathfinder. We come in peace and friendship. This is our first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence." Zextara's expression remained unreadable. "We are aware. Your species has only recently developed the technology to venture this far from your home system. We have been waiting for this moment to make formal contact. We would be honored to establish diplomatic relations with your council," Frank replied. "Perhaps. First, we must assess whether such relations would be prudent." The alien's voice carried a note of caution that Frank couldn't miss. "We would like to send a delegation to your vessel if you permit it." Frank exchanged glances with Olivia before answering. "We would welcome your delegation aboard." 20 minutes later, Frank, Olivia, and the ship's security chief stood in the Pathfinder's docking bay as a small shuttle from the alien vessel landed smoothly on the deck. The airlock hissed open, and 5 aliens emerged, led by Zextara. The delegation moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid, their steps light and measured. Frank noticed they were all taller than the average human, with slender limbs that looked fragile enough to snap under Earth's gravity. "Welcome aboard the Pathfinder," Frank said, offering a small bow instead of a handshake, unsure of their customs. Zextara acknowledged him with a slight nod. "Your atmosphere is denser than we are accustomed to, and your gravity is surprisingly strong. We can adjust the environmental controls in the conference room if that would make you more comfortable," Olivia suggested. "That won't be necessary. We have taken measures to adapt temporarily." Zextara looked around the docking bay with obvious curiosity. "Your vessel is smaller than we expected, yet you venture so far from your world. Humans are clearly more bold than cautious." As Frank led the delegation through the ship, he noticed the aliens studying everything intently. They seemed particularly interested in the crew they passed, watching how they moved and interacted. In the conference room, the delegation was shown various aspects of human culture, history, and scientific achievements. Their reactions were difficult to read, but Frank sensed growing unease among them. You evolved on a planet with large predatory animals? One of the aliens asked, examining images of Earth's wildlife. Yes, Olivia explained. Our planet has diverse ecosystems with complex food chains. And you were prey? Another alien inquired. Frank shook his head. Not exactly. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We couldn't outrun the fastest animals, but we could track them for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. The aliens exchanged glances that seemed meaningful. Show us more of your recreational activities, Zextara requested. The presentation shifted to scenes of human sports and games, football, boxing, martial arts competitions. The aliens' discomfort became more obvious now, when they saw footage of a marathon race with humans running for hours under the hot sun, sweating but continuing forward. Zextara abruptly stood. You believe we have seen enough. Is everything all right? Frank asked, concerned by the sudden shift in mood. Commander Carter, your species is remarkable. You evolved on what we would classify as a death world: high gravity, extreme temperature, variations, toxic atmospheric components, dangerous predators. You can endure physical conditions that would kill most council species within minutes. We're just adapted to our environment, Olivia said. Every species evolves to suit their homeworld. Indeed. Zextara's vertical eyelids blinked rapidly, and that is precisely what concerns us. The Council oversees thousands of species across this galaxy, Commander. In all our history, we have encountered only a handful that evolved in conditions similar to yours. Such species tend to be problematic. Frank felt a chill despite the warm room. Problematic in what way? You are aggressive by nature. Your recreational activities involve simulated combat. Your bodies are designed to repair damage that would be fatal to most species. You continue functioning despite injury, pain, and exhaustion. These are traits of apex predators, Commander. We've built peaceful societies, Frank argued. We've moved beyond our violent past. Have you? Zextara gestured to the frozen image of boxers on the screen. Your history spans mere thousands of years. The Council has existed for millions. We have seen how species like yours develop. The alien stepped closer to Frank, studying him with those strange vertical blinking eyes. The Galactic Council has reached a decision, Commander. Earth is hereby declared a quarantined world. Humans are classified as a Class 5 dangerous species, the only such classification currently in our records. What? Frank was stunned. Based on what? We've done nothing threatening. It is not what you have done, but what you are capable of doing. Zextara's voice was cold now. Your kind are predators in a galaxy of prey. For the safety of all, you must remain contained. You can't just lock us in our own solar system. Olivia protested. The decision is final. Return to Earth, Commander. Any human vessel found beyond your solar system after 30 of your days will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. With that, the delegation departed, leaving the crew of the Pathfinder in shocked silence. 3 days later, as they began the long journey back to Earth, Frank stood alone in the observation deck, watching the alien vessel grow smaller in the distance. He thought about the Council's declaration about being labeled dangerous simply for being human. They think we're monsters, Olivia said, joining him at the window. Frank shook his head slowly. No, they think we're predators. And they're right. He turned to face her, his expression resolute. But they've made a critical mistake. What's that? They've just told the most competitive, stubborn species in the galaxy that they can't do something. Frank looked back out at the stars. If they truly understood humans, they'd know exactly how we respond to that kind of challenge. Olivia smiled grimly. They have no idea what they've started, do they? No, Frank agreed, and when they finally figure it out, it'll be too late. The Galactic Council declared humans dangerous. They had no idea how right they were. 5 years had passed since the Pathfinders returned to Earth. 5 years of heated debates, secret military preparations, and diplomatic planning. The Earth Union had decided not to accept the Galactic Council's quarantine without at least attempting to negotiate. Allison Reyes adjusted the collar of her formal diplomatic uniform as she stood before the mirror in her quarters aboard the unmarked transport ship. The vessel was officially registered as a merchant freighter from one of the non-council worlds that traded with Centauri Prime. It was a cover story that had cost the Earth Union billions to arrange through backdoor channels. "Ambassador, we're approaching the final checkpoint," said Major Kyle Bennett through the communication system. As the head of her security detail, Kyle rarely relaxed. "Our papers should pass inspection, but everyone needs to remember their cover stories." "Understood, Major," Allison replied. "Is everyone clear on the protocols?" "Yes, ma'am. No displays of strength, no quick movements, and absolutely no mention of Earth." Allison took a deep breath. Their mission was both simple and impossibly complex. Infiltrate the Galactic Council's annual assembly and make a case for lifting the quarantine on humanity. The risk was enormous. If discovered, they might provoke the very conflict they were trying to avoid. 2 hours later, their ship docked at Centauri Prime's vast orbital station. Allison felt her stomach lurch as she stepped into the station's lighter gravity. The Council maintained what they called universal standard gravity on all their facilities, about 70% of Earth's pull. "It feels like we're bouncing," whispered Joe Wilson, one of her aides, as they walked behind their alien guide. "Control yourself," Kyle muttered back. "Remember, we're supposed to be from Proxima 3. This would be normal gravity for them." Allison observed everything as they moved through the station. The aliens around them came in all shapes and sizes, but she noticed they all shared certain traits: thin limbs, large eyes, and careful, deliberate movements. Many species appeared physically fragile compared to humans. The guide led them to their assigned quarters in the diplomatic sector. "The assembly begins tomorrow," the guide explained, gesturing with a six-fingered hand. "There are over 300 species represented. Proper protocol is essential." "We understand," Allison said, bowing slightly. "We're grateful for the opportunity to observe." After the guide left, Kyle immediately swept the room for surveillance devices. "Clear," he announced after several minutes. "But we should assume everything we say is being monitored." Allison nodded and wrote on a small tablet. "We proceed as planned. Night meeting, Diplomatic Hall." The next morning, Allison and her team entered the vast assembly chamber. Tiered seating surrounded a central speaking platform, with thousands of delegates in attendance. The Earth team took their assigned seats among the observer delegations, careful to attract minimal attention. High Counselor Zexitara opened the proceedings with a speech about galactic unity and progress. Allison studied him carefully. This was the same official who had declared humans dangerous 5 years ago. His pale blue skin seemed to glow under the chamber's lights. The first day of the assembly proceeded without incident. Various species presented reports, filed petitions, and engaged in the bureaucratic business of managing a galaxy-spanning civilization. Allison made careful notes about potential allies, species that seemed to question the Council's decisions or showed independent thinking. On the second day, Allison was preparing to make her approach to a delegate from the Tellarite Federation when alarms suddenly blared throughout the chamber. "Security breach in sectors 7 through 9, announced, a computerized voice in multiple languages. "All delegates remain in place. Security forces are responding." Whispers spread through the chamber as nervous delegates looked around. Then, a loud explosion rocked the station, and the lights flickered. "What's happening?" Allison asked a nearby delegate. The insectoid alien's antennae twitched nervously. "Voidborn Collective," it clicked in broken common. "Anti-council extremists. They attack assemblies sometimes." Another explosion, closer this time, sent debris falling from the ceiling. Several delegates screamed in panic. Council security forces rushed into the chamber, but they seemed confused and disorganized. "Ambassador, we need to move," Kyle said urgently, appearing at Allison's side. "This situation is deteriorating fast." Before Allison could respond, the Main doors to the chamber burst open. A group of figures in black armor rushed in, firing weapons indiscriminately. Council security forces returned fire, but they were quickly overwhelmed. "Everyone down," Kyle shouted, pushing Allison behind a row of seats. One of the attackers threw a device into the center of the chamber. It landed with a metallic clank and began emitting a high-pitched whine. "Gas!" someone shouted, and panic erupted. The life support systems shut down next. Emergency force fields failed. A section of the chamber's outer wall was breached, and the sudden decompression caused chaos as lighter delegates were pulled toward the opening before emergency barriers snapped into place. Kyle made a quick decision. "We can't maintain our cover and survive this," he told Allison. "Permission to engage, Ambassador?" Allison hesitated only briefly. "Granted. Save as many as you can." Kyle nodded and activated his comm. "Security team, protocol echo, protect the delegates." The 5 human security officers sprang into action. While the Council's security forces struggled in the failing life support system, the humans seemed barely affected. Kyle moved with purpose toward a group of attackers, his movements quick and precise in the lighter gravity. One of the terrorists turned and fired at Kyle. The energy blast hit him in the shoulder, burning through his disguise and into his flesh. The wound would have incapacitated most Council species, but Kyle barely flinched. He continued forward, surprising the attacker with his resilience. Meanwhile, Joe Wilson and the other security team members were helping delegates to emergency exits, easily lifting aliens twice their size who were struggling to breathe in the thinning atmosphere. Kyle reached the attackers and engaged them directly. Despite his injured shoulder, he moved with controlled violence that stunned the watching delegates. He disarmed one terrorist with a quick strike, then used the captured weapon to disable 2 more. When another terrorist charged him with a blade, Kyle absorbed a cut to his arm to secure a favorable position, then incapacitated his attacker with a precisely applied chokehold. Within minutes, the human security team had neutralized the immediate threat and secured the chamber. Emergency systems began to come back online as Council reinforcements finally arrived. In the aftermath, Allison saw the way the Council delegates were looking at the humans, with the same mixture of awe and fear that Zexus Tara had shown on the Pathfinder. Their cover was blown. High Counselor Zexitera himself approached them, his vertical eyelids blinking rapidly. "Earth," he said simply. "You are from Earth." Allison straightened her back and met his gaze. "Yes, Counselor. We came to petition the Council to reconsider the quarantine by infiltrating our most secure gathering, by any means necessary to open a dialogue," Allison replied firmly. "As you've just seen, humans can be valuable allies." Zexitara looked at Kyle, who was allowing a medical technician to treat his wounds. "Your security officer was shot and stabbed, yet continued fighting. He defeated 3 Voidborn attackers alone. We're resilient," Allison said. "It's why we survived on our death world." "It is why you are dangerous," Zexitera countered. Then, more quietly, he added, "And perhaps why the galaxy needs you, though most will never admit it." Later, in a private council chamber, Zexitara faced Allison across a table. "Your petition is denied, Ambassador Reyes. The quarantine remains in effect. In fact, we have strengthened it." "How?" Allison demanded. "A blockade using quantum entanglement technology now surrounds your solar system. No ships can pass without our knowledge." He paused. "However, in light of your people's actions today, we will establish limited diplomatic channels. Not freedom, but a beginning." As they prepared to return to Earth, Kyle stood with Allison on the observation deck. "It's not what we hoped for," he said, looking at the stars. "No," Allison agreed. "But we've learned something important. They fear us, yes, but they also need us. And now they know we can't be contained forever." "What happens next?" Kyle asked. Allison smiled grimly. "Now we find a way around their blockade." The Galactic Council declared humans dangerous. They had no idea how right they were part. 3 Dr. Sam Rivera hadn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned from staring at equations and simulation results on multiple screens. Empty coffee cups, littered his workstation at the Luna Research Base, Earth's most advanced scientific facility built into the moon's Tycho crater. "You should get some rest," said Diane Porter, the team's lead engineer. She placed a fresh cup of coffee next to him despite her words. Sam took the coffee gratefully. "Can't stop now. I think I'm close to something." For the past 2 years, Sam's team had been studying the quantum entanglement blockade that the Galactic Council had placed around the Sol system. The technology was far beyond human understanding, but Sam was determined to find a way through it. "What about Eric's calculations? Did they help?" Diane asked, referring to Eric Coleman, their quantum specialist. "Yes," Sam said, excitement creeping into his tired voice. "That's what's keeping me awake. Look at this." He pulled up a simulation on the main screen. It showed a representation of a spacecraft approaching the blockade, then seemingly disappearing before reappearing on the other. "Say, what am I looking at?" Diane leaned closer. "A phase shift drive. Instead of trying to break through the blockade, we go around it by temporarily shifting our matter into an adjacent dimension." Diane's eyes widened. Is that even possible?" "Theoretically, yes, the Council's blockade works in our normal space-time, but if we can shift just slightly out of phase with regular matter for a few seconds, we could slip past undetected." "Have you told General Harris yet?" Sam shook his head. "Not until I'm sure it will work. We need a small-scale test first." 3 months later, Sam stood in a secured hangar looking at a sleek black vessel unlike any spacecraft built before. The ship, codenamed Horizon, was small, designed for a crew of 6, and incorporated the experimental phase shift drive into its systems. "She's beautiful," Eric Coleman said, standing beside Sam. "Hard to believe we actually built her." "The real question is whether she'll work," Sam replied. General William Harris entered the hangar with Captain Grace Phillips, the officer chosen to command the Horizon's first mission. Captain Phillips was a veteran pilot with a calm demeanor that made her perfect for such a risky assignment. "Dr. Rivera," the general greeted, "is your team ready for the final briefing?" "Yes, sir," Sam replied. "Though I should emphasize again that this is experimental technology. We can't guarantee. The risks have been accepted at the highest levels." General Harris cut in. "The Earth Union needs to know what's beyond that blockade. We need intelligence on the Council's capabilities and intentions." Captain Phillips studied the ship with a professional eye. "How long can we maintain the phase shift?" 45 seconds at maximum," Sam explained. "After that, the power requirements become too great, and the structural integrity of the ship begins to degrade. The shift puts enormous stress on both the ship and crew." "And the crew won't be damaged by this shifting?" she asked. "Our tests indicate no lasting effects on living tissue. But I won't lie to you, Captain. You'll feel it. It's been described as the worst migraine imaginable, combined with the sensation of your skin being pulled in all directions at once." Captain Phillips nodded calmly. "We can handle discomfort." 2 weeks later, the final preparations were complete. The mission was simple in theory. The Horizon would activate its phase shift drive, slip through the blockade, gather whatever intelligence it could about what lay beyond, and return within 48 hours. Sam, Diane, and Eric would join the mission as the technical team, with Captain Phillips and 2 additional crew members handling ship operations. As the Horizon moved away from the Luna base, Sam felt his heart racing. Years of work had led to this moment. "Approaching blockade perimeter," Captain Phillips announced. "All systems nominal. Preparing for phase shift. Power levels stable," Eric reported from his station. "Quantum field generators online." "Structural integrity at 100%, added Diane. Sam took a deep breath. "Initiating phase shift sequence on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." He pressed the activation sequence. The ship shuddered as energy surged through its systems. Then came the sensation Sam had tried to prepare for but couldn't truly describe. Like being turned inside out and stretched across multiple realities simultaneously. Every crew member grimaced in pain. The view screen showed space distorting. Around them, colors shifting in impossible ways. The stars smeared like wet paint across a canvas. Sam fought to remain conscious as the pressure in his skull threatened to split it open. 20 seconds, Eric managed to gasp out. "Hold on, Captain," Phillips said through gritted teeth. 30 seconds, Diane counted, her voice strained. Then suddenly the pressure vanished. The view screen cleared. The horizon had reappeared in normal space. "We did it," Sam whispered, then louder. "We did it." Captain Phillips quickly checked. The ship's systems. All systems functioning, no damage detected, confirming position now. Her triumphant expression quickly faded as she studied the readouts. "This can't be right." "What is it?" Sam moved to her station. "According to our navigational systems, we're not just beyond the blockade. We're over 2 light years from Sol. The shift took us much farther than calculated." Before they could process this information, Eric called out, "Captain, I'm detecting a massive structure ahead, artificial in origin." On the view screen, an enormous installation appeared. It was clearly not natural, a vast complex of interconnected structures floating in space, stretching for kilometers in every direction. "No identification signals," Captain Phillips noted. "But it's definitely Council technology. The architecture matches what we've seen before." "We should approach cautiously," Sam suggested. "This is an intelligence-gathering mission, after all." Captain Phillips nodded and expertly guided the horizon closer to the massive station, using its stealth systems to avoid detection. As they approached, they could see no external weapons or defensive systems. It appeared to be a research facility of some kind. "I'm detecting a docking bay," Eric said. "Minimal security protocols." "Are you suggesting we board it?" Diane asked, sounding nervous. "This might be our only chance to access Council technology directly," Sam pointed out. After careful consideration, Captain Phillips made her decision. "We'll dock using the stealth approach. Sam, Eric, and I will board. Diane and the others. We'll remain with the ship, ready for immediate departure if necessary." An hour later, Sam found himself walking through the corridors of an alien research facility. The interior was designed for species smaller than humans, with low ceilings and narrow passages that made Sam feel uncomfortably large. "No signs of current occupation," Captain Phillips whispered as they moved. "But the systems are running. It's automated." They entered what appeared to be a central control room. Eric immediately began examining the alien interfaces, using the translation software they had developed based on their limited interactions with Council technology. "I can access some of their database," he said after several minutes. This is a biological research station. They're studying extinct species." Sam leaned over his shoulder, watching as images appeared on the screens. Creatures from across the galaxy, some vaguely resembling Earth animals, others completely alien. "Wait," Sam said suddenly. "Go back to that file." Eric returned to a previous screen showing a quadrupedal predator with razor-sharp teeth. "Look at the classification," Sam pointed. "Class 5 dangerous species. The same designation they gave us." As Eric navigated deeper into the files, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every species classified as dangerous by the Council shared certain traits. They were adaptable, resilient, and evolved on high-gravity worlds with challenging conditions. Most importantly, all were listed as contained or extinct. They've been doing this for thousands of years, Sam realized with growing horror, finding species they consider dangerous and eliminating them. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed along the corridors. "Unknown presence detected," announced an automated voice in the Council's language, which their translators rendered into English. "Security protocols activated. We need to go." "Now," Captain Phillips ordered, already moving toward the exit. They ran back toward the docking bay, but the facility's automated systems worked against them, closing doors and changing the environmental conditions. By the time they reached the horizon, the air in the docking bay was being vented into space. They barely managed to get back aboard their ship before the last of the breathable atmosphere was gone. The Horizon's engines roared to life, but not before defensive systems began targeting them. "Phase shift isn't recharged yet," Eric shouted as energy beams struck the ship's hull. Manual evasion, Captain Phillips responded calmly, her hands flying over the controls. The horizon broke away from the station, taking multiple hits as it accelerated. Warning lights flashed across every console. Hull breach in secondary containment, Diane reported. Power fluctuations in the main drive. Can we still make it home? Sam asked. As the horizon limped back toward the blockade, its phase shift drive barely functional, Sam stared at the data they had managed to download from the facility. They're going to try to eliminate us just like all the others, he said quietly. The Galactic Council declared humans dangerous. They had no idea how right. They were Part 4. Admiral Susan Howard stood before the large view screen in Earth's Orbital Defense Command Center. The screen showed a fleet of alien vessels approaching. The edge of the solar system. The ships were massive, dwarfing even the largest human vessels. How long until they reach Mars colony? She asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 17 hours at their current speed, replied the tactical officer. They're moving cautiously, but with purpose. 1 week had passed since the Horizon's return. 1 week since humanity learned the truth about the Galactic Council's practice of eliminating species they deemed dangerous. 1 week of frantic preparation for what everyone knew was coming. Status of evacuation? Susan asked. Luna is at 90%, Mars at 73%, another officer reported. Civilian transports are operating at maximum capacity. Susan nodded. When the Council fleet had first appeared beyond Pluto's orbit, she had immediately ordered the evacuation of Earth's vulnerable space colonies. If the Council wanted a war, they would find humanity ready. But Susan wasn't willing to risk civilian lives in the opening salvo. And the prototype fleet? 27 vessels equipped with phase shift drives are operational, Admiral. Dr. Rivera's team has worked miracles, but the technology is still experimental. We can't guarantee reliable performance in combat conditions. Susan turned to face the gathered officers. I understand the risks, but those 27 ships represent our best chance of survival. The Council vessels outmass and outgun us by orders of magnitude. We need the advantage that phase shift technology gives us. In the briefing room adjacent to the command center, Lieutenant Jack Morgan studied the tactical displays with his squad. The 12-person team had been selected for a high-risk boarding operation against the Council's command ship. We're really going to try to capture an alien vessel? Asked Sergeant Lisa Dawson, Jack's second-in-command. With just 12 of us? The Council doesn't understand boarding actions, Jack explained. According to the intelligence from Centauri, Prime, their species avoid physical confrontation at all costs. Their internal security will be focused on technological countermeasures, not repelling human combatants. Still seems like a suicide mission, Lisa muttered. Jack couldn't disagree. The plan was desperate, but these were desperate times. The first attack came without warning. A series of energy pulses from the lead Council vessels struck Earth's orbital defenses. Stations designed to withstand meteor impacts crumpled under the assault. The Mars colony took heavy damage before its shields could activate. Admiral Howard's response was immediate. Launch all vessels, defensive formation Beta. Protect the evacuation transports at all costs. Earth's fleet moved to engage the Council armada. Conventional warships formed a protective screen around the civilian ships fleeing from Mars and Luna, while the prototype vessels equipped with phase shift drives took a more aggressive stance. From the bridge of her flagship, the ESS Defiant, Susan watched as the battle unfolded. The Council ships were methodical, almost mechanical in their approach. They fired in coordinated patterns, focusing overwhelming force on individual targets. They're picking us apart, her executive officer said grimly as another human vessel exploded in silence. Not for long, Susan replied. Signal the phase shift squadron to execute maneuver Theta. The 27 prototype ships suddenly vanished from their formation, their phase shift drives activating simultaneously. For 30 critical seconds, they existed partially outside normal space-time, invisible to the Council's sensors. When they reappeared, they were behind the Council fleet, in perfect position to strike at their vulnerable engine sections. The Council vessels, never designed to fight enemies who could appear from nowhere, scrambled to adjust their defensive posture. In the confusion, several took heavy damage from the human ship's concentrated fire. On the Council command ship, War Sovereign Nethvar observed the battle with growing concern. The humans were fighting with tactics he had never encountered in centuries of military service. When faced with superior force, they became more aggressive rather than retreating. Their smaller vessels deliberately placed themselves in the path of Council weapons to shield their damaged allies. The crews of crippled ships continued to fight even as their vessels broke apart around them. "They do not follow the patterns of rational combat," he said to his second-in-command. "Even species classified as predators typically preserve themselves when defeat is certain." "Perhaps they do not recognize their defeat is certain," his subordinate suggested. "Perhaps," Nethvar agreed, though he was beginning to question that certainty himself. The battle raged for hours. The Council's superior technology and firepower slowly pushed back the human defenders, but at a cost far higher than Nethvar had anticipated. When the humans lost a ship, the survivors often continued fighting, using emergency thrusters on their spacesuits to maneuver and attach explosives directly to Council hull plates. Then came a development Nethvar truly had not expected. His sensor officer reported a small human vessel on a direct collision course with the command ship. Before defensive measures could be completed, the vessel activated what appeared to be a phase shift drive, temporarily vanishing from sensors. "Impossible," Nethvar said. "They cannot have penetrated our shields." But they had. Lieutenant Jack Morgan and his squad materialized inside the Council command ship, their assault craft's phase shift drive burning out permanently from the strain of passing through active shields. "Move fast. Stay together," Jack ordered as his team secured the hangar bay where they had emerged. "We have 15 minutes to reach the bridge and capture War Sovereign Nethvar." The squad encountered their first resistance in a corridor leading to the command deck. Council security forces fired energy weapons that scorched the walls and filled the air with an acrid smell. One blast caught Private Ryan Ellis in the chest, burning through his armor and into his flesh. "Ryan!" Lisa shouted, dropping to one knee beside him. "I'm okay," he gasped, despite the severe burn visible through his damaged armor. "I can still move." Jack helped Ryan to his feet. Any Council species would have been incapacitated by such a wound, but humans had evolved to function through pain and injury. This was exactly why the Council feared them. The squad pushed forward, encountering increasingly desperate resistance. They lost 2 more members to enemy fire, and everyone suffered injuries of varying severity. Jack took a glancing hit to his left leg that scorched away the outer layer of his armor and blistered the skin beneath. He ignored the pain, pressing on toward their objective. When they finally breached the command deck, they found Nethvar and his officers barricaded behind energy shields. Jack assessed the situation quickly. "Convergence pattern," he ordered, and his remaining squad members moved to surround the shielded area. They fired targeted shots at junction points in the shield generator, a weakness identified from the data recovered by the Horizon mission. The shields flickered, then failed. Nethvar stood tall as the humans entered the command center, his vertical eyelids blinking rapidly at the sight of the injured yet still functioning squad. "You are bleeding, burned, and clearly in pain," the War Sovereign said to Jack. "Yet you continue to fight. This is why your kind was classified as dangerous." "We're dangerous when threatened," Jack replied, keeping his weapon trained on the alien commander. "We're here to end this attack." "You think capturing me will stop the Council's efforts? They will send another fleet, and another. Your species cannot be allowed to spread beyond your world." Jack smiled grimly. "We're not just capturing you, War Sovereign. We're taking your ship, and with it, all the data needed to prove to the Council that their fear-based extermination policy is what created this conflict in the first place." Outside, Admiral Howard watched as the running lights on the Council command ship changed pattern, signaling the success of Jack's mission. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a fighting chance. "All ships, form up around the captured command vessel," she ordered. Prepare to push back the remaining Council forces. The battle for Earth wasn't over, but humanity had shown the Council something they had never expected. A species willing to face extinction rather than submit, and capable of turning the tide against seemingly impossible odds. In the silence of the command deck, surrounded by his injured but unbowed squad, Lieutenant Jack Morgan secured the alien commander and began the process of understanding the ship they had captured, their first step toward changing the Council's perception of humanity forever. The Galactic Council declared humans dangerous. They had no idea how right they were part. 5 Amy Thompson pressed her hand against the glass window of the observation deck aboard the captured Council command ship. Earth hung in the distance, a iodized blue marble against the blackness of space. The battle had pushed back beyond the orbit of Mars, giving them a temporary respite. As a xenolinguist, Amy had been brought aboard to help decipher the more complex aspects of the Council's database. Standard translation software could handle basic communication, but the nuances of alien language required a human touch. Making any progress? Asked Captain Daniel Wright, who had been assigned command of the captured vessel, now renamed Defiance. Yes. Actually, Amy replied, turning away from the window. I've been intercepting and analyzing transmissions from across this sector of space. There's something strange happening. She led Daniel to her workstation, where multiple screens displayed communication patterns she had isolated. These signals don't match known Council protocols, she explained. They're using different encryption methods, different language structures. I think they're coming from other species, ones not officially recognized by the Council. Daniel leaned closer. Other species in hiding? Like us? Exactly. Amy's fingers danced across the controls, bringing up new data. Based on the signal origins, I've identified at least 7 distinct non-Council civilizations within 50 light-years of Earth. They're hiding in nebulae, asteroid fields, even the atmospheres of gas giants, places the Council doesn't regularly patrol. Can you establish contact? Amy nodded. I've been working on it. There's one group in particular that seems to be the most organized. They call themselves the Draconians. I've managed to open a rudimentary communication channel with them. Daniel straightened, his expression serious. This could change everything. If there are other species out there who've been targeted by the Council, we might be able to form alliances. 2 days later, Admiral Howard called a strategy meeting aboard her flagship. The situation was grim. The Council forces had regrouped and were preparing for another assault. Earth's fleet, already depleted from the first battle, would not survive a second engagement of similar intensity. The phase shift technology gives us an advantage, Admiral Howard said to the assembled officers, but it's not enough. The Council simply has too many ships. We might have an alternative, Daniel said, stepping forward with Amy. Tell them what you've discovered. Amy explained about the hidden species and the contact she had established with the Draconians. They've been hiding from the Council for centuries. They were also classified as a dangerous species because of their predatory evolution. But they've developed their own technologies and built a substantial fleet. Can they be trusted? Someone asked. They share our situation, Amy replied. The Council tried to exterminate them too. They've been waiting for an opportunity to challenge the Council's dominance, but they've never had the numbers or the technology to do it alone. Admiral Howard considered this information carefully. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Daniel said. We share our phase shift technology with the Draconians and any other hidden species willing to fight. In return, they join us against the Council. It's a gamble, Admiral Howard admitted. But right now, we need every advantage we can get. The decision was made. Using the communication protocols Amy had established, they sent their proposal to the hidden species. The response came faster than expected. The Draconians, led by Commander Sareth, agreed immediately. Over the next week, as the Council fleet advanced once more toward Earth, ships began appearing from unexpected directions, emerging from nebulae, asteroid fields, and other hiding places. They were of varied designs, but all bore the mark of species that had evolved in harsh environments, built for durability and function rather than elegance. The Draconians have arrived, Amy announced as the largest contingent joined Earth's defensive formation. The Draconian vessels were angular and armored, resembling the reptilian species that built them. A communication came through from the lead ship. Commander Sareth appeared on screen, a tall, scaled humanoid with amber eyes and a crest of rigid spines along his head. "Greetings, humans. The prey have hunted the predators long enough. Today we hunt together." Admiral Howard nodded respectfully. "We're grateful for your support, Commander. Are your ships equipped with the phase shift technology we provided?" "They are," Sareth confirmed. "My engineers were impressed by its elegance. We have also brought allies, the Torgans from the Cygnus Nebula and the Viridian Collective from the Outer Rim. All have suffered under Council oppression. The combined fleet took up positions around Earth and waited. They didn't have to wait long." The Council Armada approached with overwhelming numbers, their formation perfect and methodical as always. War Sovereign Nethvar, now a captive aboard the Defiance, watched the tactical display with Admiral Howard and Captain Wright. "You cannot win," he said. "The Council will send more ships and more after that. Your rebellion is futile." "Perhaps," Admiral Howard replied. "But we're not just fighting for victory today. We're fighting to change the way the galaxy works." The battle began with a devastating salvo from the Council fleet. But this time the defenders were ready. The combined fleet of dangerous species utilized the phase shift technology in perfect coordination, disappearing and reappearing in patterns that confused and disrupted the Council's formations. The Draconians proved especially effective in combat. Their natural aggression translated into bold but calculated maneuvers. The Torgans, silicon-based life forms from a high-gravity world, deployed ships that could withstand tremendous punishment. The Viridian Collective, evolved from pack hunters, coordinated their attacks with uncanny precision. For the first time, in thousands of years, the Council forces faced opponents who would not retreat, who could match their technology, and who fought with the determination of species who had everything to lose. As the battle reached its climax, Captain Daniel Wright led a daring mission aboard the Defiance. Using the captured ship's credentials, they approached the Council flagship, where the Galactic Council's remaining leadership had gathered to observe what they expected to be a decisive victory. "Ready for boarding action," Daniel ordered, checking his gear. Beside him stood Commander Sareth, who had insisted on joining this critical mission. "Your species and mine," the Draconian said. "We are not so different. The Council feared us both for the same reason. We refused to be prey." The boarding party, a mix of humans and Draconians, used the phase shift technology to bypass the flagship's shields. They fought their way to the command deck, where they found High Counselor Zexatera and the remaining Council leadership. "This is impossible," Zexatera said as the boarders secured the room. "You were contained. You were supposed to be isolated." "That's the problem with your thinking," Daniel replied. "You've spent so long eliminating any species that showed independence or strength that you've forgotten how to deal with real opposition." Commander Sareth stepped forward, his reptilian features intimidating even in the calm after battle. "For centuries you have hunted us, calling us dangerous. Today you learn how right you were." The capture of the Council leadership marked the turning point in the conflict. With their command structure disrupted and faced with opposition unlike anything they had encountered before, many Council ships surrendered or retreated. In the aftermath, representatives from Earth, the Draconians, and the other formerly hidden species gathered to negotiate a new galactic order. One where predator and prey species could coexist, where diversity of evolution was seen as a strength rather than a threat. As Amy Thompson observed the proceedings, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Galactic Council had declared humans dangerous, thinking they could contain them as they had contained others. Instead, they had created the very alliance that would reshape the galaxy. "They were right to fear us," she said to Daniel as they watched the diverse representatives shake hands, grasp claws, and press tentacles in gestures of alliance. "But wrong about why. It wasn't our capacity for violence that made us dangerous. It was our capacity to unite others in a common cause." Daniel nodded. The most dangerous predator is the one who learns to cooperate with others. That's a lesson the Council never understood. In the years that followed, the new alliance of species spread across the galaxy, dismantling the Council's oppressive classifications and bringing freedom to thousands of worlds. Humans, once quarantined to their own solar system, now traveled freely among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners in a more diverse and balanced galactic community. And though they were still known as a dangerous species, humanity wore the label with pride. Sometimes being dangerous was exactly what the galaxy needed.